You know that feeling when you are standing in your own kitchen, the one you scrubbed every single day for 30 years? And someone looks you dead in the eye and tells you to get out like you are nothing more than an unwanted stranger. That was the moment I realized my son had become someone I no longer recognized. I had given him everything I had, worked 3 jobs to put him through college, sacrificed vacations and new clothes and even my own health so he could have opportunities I never dreamed of. And when he won $1 million in the lottery, the first words out of his mouth were not "thank you" or "I love you" or "we made it, Mom." No, he screamed at me to get out of his house. And in that moment, standing there with my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces, I made a decision that would change both of our lives forever. But did I do the right thing, or did I go too far? My name is Linda, and I am 58 years old. I raised my son Marcus as a single mother after his father walked out on us when Marcus was only 3 years old. I never remarried because I poured every ounce of my energy into making sure Marcus had stability, love, and a future. I worked as a nurse during the day, cleaned offices at night, and on weekends I did medical transcription from home. Sleep was a luxury I could not afford. But I told myself it would all be worth it when Marcus graduated college debt-free and started his own life. I believed that all those years of sacrifice would mean something to him. I believed he would remember the woman who held him when he had nightmares, who missed her own mother's funeral because she had to work a double shift to pay his tuition, who wore the same winter coat for 15 years so he could have the latest textbooks. I thought those memories would anchor him. I thought wrong. Marcus did well in school, got his degree in business, and landed a decent job at a marketing firm. He moved into a nice apartment, started dating a woman named Vanessa, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began pulling away from me. At first, it was little things. He stopped calling on Sundays. He canceled our monthly dinners. When I would text him to check in, his responses became shorter and colder. One-word answers. Delayed replies. Then Vanessa entered the picture and everything accelerated. She was polished, confident, and came from money. Her family owned rental properties and vacation homes. She made it clear from the first time we met that she thought I was beneath them. She would smile sweetly and make comments about how hard it must have been for me to raise Marcus on such a limited income. How she could never imagine living paycheck to paycheck. How grateful Marcus must be that his life turned out so differently than mine. And Marcus, he said nothing. He just sat there, nodding along, laughing at her jokes, agreeing when she suggested I might be more comfortable at a cheaper restaurant because the one they chose had entrees that cost more than I made in a day. The pattern continued for years. Marcus and Vanessa got engaged, and I was not asked to help plan the wedding. I was told where to sit, what to wear, and reminded not to embarrass them in front of Vanessa's family. I smiled through it all because I thought eventually Marcus would come back to himself. I thought he would remember who raised him, who believed in him when no one else did. But after the wedding, things got worse. Vanessa convinced Marcus that I was too needy, too demanding of his time, too stuck in the past. She said I made her uncomfortable with my stories about struggling to pay bills, that I was guilt-tripping Marcus whenever I mentioned the sacrifices I made for him. Marcus began repeating her words like they were his own. He told me I needed to move on, stop living in the past, and accept that he had his own life now. When I tried to explain that I just wanted to be part of that life, he accused me of being manipulative. When I asked if we could have dinner once a month, he said I was being controlling. I started to feel like a ghost in my own son's story, like I had been erased and replaced with someone more acceptable to Vanessa's world. Then 2 months ago, everything came to a head. Marcus called me out of nowhere, more excited than I had heard him in years. He told me he had won $1 million in the state lottery. He bought a single ticket on a whim, checked the numbers on his phone, and nearly fainted when he realized he had matched all 6. He was laughing, almost crying, saying he could not believe it, that this was going to change everything. For a moment, just a brief and foolish moment, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe this windfall would remind him of where he came from, of the woman who gave up everything so he could have a chance at exactly this kind of life. Maybe he would finally say thank you. Maybe he would offer to pay off the mortgage on my tiny house, or help me retire early since my knees were shot from decades of standing on hospital floors. Maybe he would just acknowledge that I was the reason he even existed to win that money. I went to his house the next day because he told me to come over. He said he wanted to talk about the future, about plans. I walked in with a hopeful heart, and that was my first mistake. Vanessa was there, sitting on their expensive leather couch with her arms crossed and her mouth set in a thin line. Marcus was pacing, agitated, and I knew immediately something was wrong. I asked him what was going on, and he exploded. He told me that I needed to understand something right now, that this money was his and Vanessa's, not mine. He said I had spent his entire life making him feel guilty for having anything good. That I always brought up my sacrifices like I was keeping score, and that he was done feeling like he owed me something just because I chose to have him. Those were his exact words. I chose to have him. Like he was a burden I signed up for and now had no right to complain about. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what I was hearing, and then Vanessa chimed in. She said they had big plans for that money, plans that did not include supporting me or listening to me guilt-trip Marcus anymore. She said it was time for me to leave and let them enjoy their blessing without my negativity dragging them down. I looked at Marcus, waiting for him to defend me, to tell her she had gone too far. But he did not. Instead, he pointed to the door and told me to get out. He said I was not welcome in his house anymore, that he was cutting me off emotionally and financially, and that if I could not be happy for him without expecting something in return, then I needed to leave and not come back. I remember staring at him, at this man I had raised, and feeling like I was looking at a stranger. My chest tightened, my hands shook, and for a moment I thought I might collapse right there on his marble floor. But I did not. I turned around, walked out, and drove home in complete silence. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just sat in my car in my driveway for an hour, staring at nothing, trying to understand how I had failed so completely. But then something shifted inside me. Anger, maybe. Clarity, definitely. I went inside, made myself a cup of tea, and started thinking. Marcus did not know this, but years ago when he was applying to colleges, he needed a cosigner for a private student loan because he did not have credit yet. Co-signed. That loan was for $45,000, and the agreement was that Marcus would pay it back after graduation. And he did, mostly. But there were months when he missed payments, months when I covered them so his credit would not tank. Over the years, I paid nearly $12,000 of that loan myself. Money I could not afford. Money I borrowed against my own credit cards and home equity. I never told him because I did not want him to feel bad. I thought I was being a good mother. I also did not tell him that 3 years ago, when he and Vanessa bought their first house, they needed help with the down payment. Vanessa's parents offered $20,000, but they were still short. Marcus called me desperate, saying this was his chance to start building wealth and he could not let it slip away. I took out a $15,000 loan against my retirement account, gave it to him, and told him to pay me back when he could. He never did. He forgot about it entirely, and I never reminded him because, again, I thought that was what mothers did. I also had something else. Years ago, Marcus's father had signed over his parental rights. But as part of that agreement, he was supposed to pay a one-time settlement to me for child support he owed. That settlement was $22,000, and it was placed in a trust account with my name and Marcus's name on it, intended to help him start his adult life. Marcus never accessed it because he forgot it existed. I was the trustee, and I had full legal authority over it. I had kept it there, untouched, thinking I would give it to him when he had children of his own, when he might finally understand what it meant to sacrifice for someone you love. But now, sitting in my kitchen with my heart shattered, I realized Marcus was never going to understand. He was never going to see me as anything other than an obligation he had finally shed. So I made a plan. I contacted the loan company for the student loan and requested documentation showing how much I had personally paid. I pulled records from my bank showing the down payment loan I gave him. I gathered the trust account paperwork. Then I wrote Marcus a letter. It was not angry or accusatory. It was simply factual. I explained that over the years, I had contributed $16,900 to his life beyond basic parenting. I had co-signed loans, covered missed payments, and given him money I did not have because I believed in him. I told him I was no longer willing to carry that debt, and I was formally requesting repayment within 90 days. I explained that if he did not pay, I would pursue legal action to recover the money, including filing a claim against the trust account that still had his name on it, but was under my control. I closed the account, transferred the $22,000 to my own savings, and sent the letter via certified mail. 3 days later, my phone exploded. Marcus called me 15 times in 1 hour. When I finally answered, he was screaming. He accused me of being vindictive, greedy, and manipulative. He said I was trying to steal his lottery winnings, that I had no right to that trust money, and that he was going to sue me. I stayed calm. I told him the trust was legally mine to manage, that I had documentation for every dollar I had loaned or paid on his behalf, and that I was simply asking for what I was owed. He hung up on me. Vanessa sent me a series of text messages calling me a terrible mother, saying I was bitter and jealous, and threatening to turn the whole family against me. I blocked her number. Then Marcus sent me an email with his lawyer copied, demanding I return the trust money and drop my repayment request. My response was simple. I sent all the documentation, highlighted every payment I made, and explained that I was happy to settle this outside of court if he paid me back what he owed. Otherwise, my lawyer would be in touch. What Marcus did not anticipate was that his father's settlement trust had very specific language. It stated that the funds were for Marcus's benefit, but that I, as trustee, had the authority to withdraw or redirect them if I determined they were not being used in his best interest. A lawyer I consulted confirmed that, given Marcus's hostility and refusal to acknowledge my financial contributions, I had legal grounds to reclaim that money as compensation for unpaid debts. Marcus tried to fight it, but his lawyer told him he did not have a case. The student loan co-signing, the down payment loan, the missed payments I covered, all of it was documented. He owed me, and he knew it. But that was only the beginning. Word spread through our small extended family about what happened. Marcus tried to paint me as a villain, telling everyone I was trying to steal from him after he won the lottery. But I had saved every text, every email, every receipt. I showed them to my sister, to Marcus's godmother, to the few family members who still spoke to both of us. They were horrified. They could not believe Marcus had told me to get out, that he had denied everything I did for him, that he had let Vanessa talk about me like I was trash. Slowly, people started pulling away from him. His godmother, who had always adored him, told him she was ashamed of the man he had become. My sister stopped inviting him and Vanessa to family gatherings. Even Vanessa's own mother, who I ran into at the grocery store, quietly told me she thought Marcus had handled things terribly and that I deserved better. Then came the real consequences. Marcus had planned to use his lottery winnings to invest in a business venture with Vanessa's brother, some kind of luxury rental property scheme. But when I formally requested repayment of the $16,900 he owed me, it created a legal cloud over his finances. His lawyer advised him that until the debt was settled, entering into major business contracts could expose him to financial liability. Vanessa was furious. I'd been counting on that investment, and now it was delayed indefinitely. He started fighting. I know this because Marcus's godmother told me Vanessa had called her, complaining that Marcus's poor financial planning and his toxic relationship with me were ruining their future. The irony was not lost on anyone. Marcus tried one more time to reconcile, but it was not out of love or regret. It was out of desperation. He sent me a text saying maybe we could work something out, that he did not want this to get ugly, that families should not fight over money. I responded with a simple message. I told him that for 30 years I never asked him for anything except respect and acknowledgement. I told him that I gave him everything I had, not because I wanted to be repaid, but because I loved him. But the moment he told me to get out, The moment he denied my sacrifices and treated me like I was nothing, he made a choice, and now I was making mine. I was taking back what I was owed, not out of greed, but out of self-respect. I told him that when he was ready to apologize, really apologize, and acknowledge what I did for him, I would consider letting him back into my life. But until then, he could live with the consequences of his actions. I have not spoken to him since. Some people think I am being too harsh, that I should give him another chance because he is my son, but I know what those people do not. I know what it feels like to be invisible in your own child's life. I know what it feels like to hear the person you love most in the world tell you to get out like you are nothing. And I know that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away and let someone face the consequences of their choices. Maybe one day Marcus will truly understand what he lost. Maybe he will grow, change, and become the kind of man who deserves a second chance. But until then, I am choosing me. I am choosing peace, boundaries, and a life where I am not defined by someone else's gratitude or lack thereof. I still think about him every day. I still love him, because you do not stop loving your child just because they hurt you. But I also love myself now, and that is something I never truly did before. I spent 30 years pouring from an empty cup, and I am done. I am filling my own cup now, and if Marcus ever wants to sit at my table again, he will have to show me that he understands what that means. Let me know in the comments, what would you have done in this situation? And do not forget to subscribe to Golden Years Diary for more stories like this.